Welcome along to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you send us and, well, we try to pull out the key insights.
Yeah, the idea is to help you get, well-informed, maybe spark some of those aha moments, but without feeling totally swamped by information.
Exactly. We know you're here to learn, see different perspectives, and that's what we aim for. So today we're looking at some excerpts from what's called a Murli. This one's dated May 12th, 2025.
Right. And Murli, it translates literally as flute from Hindi, but in this context, it means spiritual teachings. These are seen as direct words of wisdom.
Okay. And what's the main thrust of this particular one?
Well, what really stands out is this core message, this kind of constant invitation to remember what it calls our godly student life.
Oddly student life.
Yeah, and the knowledge being shared, remembering it even when we're just, going about our daily lives, doing our jobs, whatever.
Right.
And it gives this, well, quite unique way of looking at time, who we are fundamentally, and our purpose.
Interesting. Okay, so let's maybe dive into that first big idea then, this godly student life.
Sure.
The Murli talks about the soul, each of us as an actor who's gone through
Wow.
a cycle of 84 births. That's a lot.
That is a huge time scale, yeah. And it describes this journey, this transformation from being tamapratan,
Which means,
sort of impure, or maybe age, like the end of a cycle,
okay,
to becoming sataprathan, which is pure, golden aged, you could say.
right, pure. And the text insists that only the Father, understood as God or the Supreme Being, can really explain this whole cycle.
Exactly. That's the assertion. This knowledge, this understanding of the full sweep of the cycle comes from that divine source. It's foundational.
So to help us get our heads around it, there's this analogy.
Yeah, the analogy of a spiritual school.
Ah, okay.
This is where this specific knowledge is being taught, being imparted, and it makes a really key distinction between being in the school, which means being in remembrance.
Focused, connected.
And being outside, which means being caught up in, well, what it calls worldly consciousness. Ordinary awareness, maybe?
So it's about where your attention is.
Very much so. It's about holding on to a certain awareness, a kind of spiritual lens, as you experience things.
And it talks about ancient India, Bharat, doesn't it? Painting quite a picture.
It really does. Describes it as having been incredibly elevated. Solvent is the word used.
Solvent. Like financially sound.
Yeah.
Or something deeper.
Probably deeper, more like spiritually rich, whole, self-sufficient. A time when beings were masters of the world, even deities.
Wow. Deities. That's a high state.
It is. And it contrasts that starkly with the present state, described as having fallen to the ground. So a huge decline over the cycle.
Okay, see the arc there.
And what's really stressed is integrating this knowledge, this awareness into daily life. It's not just theory.
Right, not just sitting and meditating all day.
No, exactly. It specifically says keep this awareness of the cycle even while you're doing business, your work, your chores.
So it's not about dropping out, it's about shifting your inner perspective while you're in the world.
Precisely. Living with that bigger picture consciously humming in the background, you could say.
Okay, bringing that spiritual education into the everyday. Now, there's a question posed in the Mercifully. Something about digesting knowledge.
Ah, yes, that's a great bit. It asks, what are the signs of the children who know how to digest the nectar of this knowledge?
Nectar of knowledge. I like that. And the answer...
It's quite profound, actually. It says they have this constant spiritual intoxication.
like being drunk.
Well, maybe not literally drunk, more like a sustained inner state of upliftment, of being filled with this understanding. It's not just a fleeting high.
Okay, a deep, ongoing joy or lightness.
Something like that. And flowing from that, they are naturally dedicated to benefiting everyone, always looking to help, to uplift others.
So the inner state leads to outer action.
Yes, and engaging in what it calls the service of changing thorns into flowers.
Thorns into flowers, that's a powerful image.
Isn't it? It refers back to that idea of having become impure, like thorns. And the process now is to become pure again, like flowers. It's about transformation, ours, and helping others transform.
And if you're really in that state, that intoxicated state,
then the Murli suggests you just wouldn't get involved in talk that doesn't benefit others. Idle gossip, negativity, it just wouldn't be your focus.
That's a practical measure, isn't it?
Yeah.
What are you spending your time talking about?
Exactly. It links directly back to how well you're actually absorbing or digesting this knowledge.
Okay. Which probably leads us to the idea of remembrance. It seems central.
Absolutely central. The pilgrimage of remembrance of the Father. It's repeated constantly. The term man-manapav comes up again and again.
Man-manapav.
Meaning, essentially, fix your mind on me. remember the Father.
And it explains how this knowledge is given through someone.
Yes, it says the Father takes a body on loan. This physical form is referred to as this one, or sometimes the lucky chariot.
Which is understood to be Brahma.
That's the understanding, yes. But the emphasis isn't on worshiping the chariot, the person.
On using that connection as a focal point.
Exactly. A bridge to remember the ultimate source, the incorporeal Father. And the instruction that follows is pretty direct. Remember me alone. Renounce all the relationships of bodies.
Wow, that's strong. Renounce all bodily relationships. What does that mean practically?
Well, it's about shifting your primary identification. Seeing yourself and others primarily as souls, children of the one Father, rather than just defining yourself by your physical connections, parent, child, spouse, friend. It doesn't necessarily mean abandoning people, but changing the basis of the relationship, the consciousness behind it.
Okay, so it's an internal shift in identity and attachment.
Yes. And this constant remembrance, this Manmanapav, is presented as the direct way to become pure again.
Right, you mentioned the analogy of gold.
Removing the alloy, the impurities, the negative traits, the attachments that have mixed with the pure gold of the soul over the cycle.
And this remembrance helps burn away that alloy.
That's the idea. It connects to replacing what the Murli calls devilish intellects.
Meaning intellects focused on vice, negativity, the material.
Kind of, yeah. Intellects caught in the downward spiral of the cycle. Replacing those with godly intellects, which are being bestowed through this knowledge and remembrance. Intellects aligned with purity, peace, love.
Okay. And this whole process, this purification, this shift in intellects is happening now.
Yes, specifically during what's called the most elevated confluence age.
Confluence age? Can you break that down a bit?
Sure. The Murli sees time cyclically. It goes from new, the golden age, pure elevated.
Satoparadhan.
Right. Through stages of decline, silver, copper, down to the old, impure Iron Age.
Kamopradhan.
Exactly. The confluence age is this special transitional period. It's the cusp, the point where the old Iron Age is ending and the new Golden Age is about to begin.
Like the dawn between night and day.
That's a great way to put it. It's seen as the most crucial time, the time when the transformation happens, when the Father comes to give this knowledge and reestablish the Golden Age.
So a time of massive upheaval, but also immense opportunity.
Precisely. The Murli talks about the devilish community representing the old, declining world and the divine community that's emerging through this knowledge. It's the moment the old world is made new.
And it links this to history, the loss of the kingdom of deities and other religions appearing.
Yes, it frames the rise of other religions as something that happened later in the cycle, after the initial pure state of the deities began to decline. It's a very specific interpretation of spiritual history tied to this cycle.
Okay. And central to this confluence age is the Father acting as the purifier.
The purifier, yes. The Murli says souls inherently remember and call out to the Father because they long to be purified from the sorrow and impurity accumulated over the cycle.
And it contrasts this with other methods.
It does. It mentions things like bathing in the Ganges River or following various gurus, suggesting that while people seek purity through these means, only the one Father is the true ultimate purifier who can cleanse the soul itself.
Got it. And the method he gives is?
It circles back to that core message. Consider yourselves to be souls, and remember me, the Father, and you will become pure. Simple, yet profound.
That's the essence. Man-man-of-Hav again. Remember the incorporeal Father.
That's it. And flowing from this focus, there's a really strong instruction about gossip.
Yes, you mentioned that earlier. Renounce gossiping.
Very clearly stated, don't speak of anything other than the things of Rama, meaning godly knowledge, spiritual matters.
So talking about other people's flaws or issues
is seen as detrimental. Telling stories about one person to another, especially negative ones, is strongly discouraged. It pulls the mind away from remembrance.
Keep the focus clean on the positive, on the divine.
Exactly. There's this lovely analogy used of to let the individual souls.
Like in the Ramayana.
Yes, drawing on that imagery. All the Sitas need to have yoga, that connection, that remembrance, with the one Rama who represents God the Father.
One single point of focus for all souls.
That's presented as the primary task, the only business right now in this confluence age.
And what does that business involve, practically?
It involves giving the message.
Yeah.
Telling others that the Father has come, that this special time is here, and that we're preparing to go to the Golden Age.
Leaving the Iron Age behind.
Right. Which is described quite starkly as being sent into exile, or like a jungle, a place of difficulty and confusion.
And the Golden Age is like?
There's another analogy, like a Kumari, an unmarried young woman who goes from that state of exile, perhaps her difficult parental home, to her in-laws' home, which is described as a beautiful mansion.
So moving from hardship and limitation to a place of abundance, peace, and belonging.
That's the feeling, yes, a complete transformation of the world and our experience within it.
It paints a picture of incredible hope, really.
It does. And central to achieving that state is cultivating love for the one Father alone, that singular focus.
Yeah, the Mursi even mentions the father feeling forgotten.
Yes, a gentle complaint, you could say, a prompt for self-reflection. How much do I actually remember? How much time do I spend in that loving connection versus getting lost in other things?
That requires some honest self-assessment.
Definitely. And there's this powerful image of sitting in the fire of yoga.
Fire of yoga.
Yes, meaning intense, focused remembrance. This fire is what absolves past negative karma, the sins. It purifies.
Like burning away the dross.
Exactly. And it contrasts the state you reach through this, moving from traveling in a third-class carriage like goats.
Crowded, uncomfortable, impure.
Right, to traveling in an air-conditioned carriage.
Smooth, comfortable, pure, elevated.
It really emphasizes the radical difference in the quality of being that remembrance brings about.
So if we were to boil it down, what are the absolute core principles for dharana, for spiritual practice that come out of this?
The Murli highlights two main things really clearly. First, watch your words. Focus conversation only on godly matters, things of knowledge, and completely renounce gossip and negativity about others.
Mindful communication.
Very mindful. And second, cultivate that deep, singular love for the one Father. And use the power of that remembrance, that yoga, to purify yourself.
Focus the conversation. Focus the love and remembrance.
Those are the pillars for living this godly student life it describes.
And there's a final blessing and slogan.
Yes. The blessing is about becoming a world transformer. And the key to that is using the power to accommodate.
Power to accommodate. Meaning.
Meaning being able to embrace different perspectives, different people without judgment, focusing on your own righteousness, your own efforts, rather than picking out faults in others, and offering cooperation instead of criticism.
That's quite practical advice for interaction.
It is, and the slogan complements it. In order to be a constant yogi, transform any limited I or mine into an unlimited one.
Moving beyond selfish concerns to a broader, more universal perspective.
Exactly. Seeing the bigger picture, the collective journey.
And there was one last piece, the Aviac signal, subtle guidance.
This points towards embodying a specific quality. Imbibe the personality of spiritual royalty and purity.
Spiritual royalty. What does that feel like?
It implies a certain dignity, self-respect, detachment, generosity, perhaps. And it clarifies that purity here isn't just about celibacy, though that's part of it in this path. It's broader. It means following the example set by Father Brahma in, well, everything. Every thought, word, and action.
So a holistic embodiment of those divine principles.
That's the aim, a constant state of being aligned with that higher nature.
Okay, so bringing this deep dive together then, we've explored this really distinct view of time, the 84 birth cycle.
Yeah, and the critical importance of constant remembrance of Manmanabhav for achieving purity.
And the role of the Father as the guide, the purifier, especially now in this confluence age.
Right, this pivotal time of transition from the old Iron Age towards the promised Golden Age. It's a very comprehensive worldview.
It certainly is. Lots to think about there. And hopefully, for you listening, this focused look has helped you feel a bit more informed, maybe spark some connections.
Absolutely. And maybe the core invitation is just to keep cultivating that awareness of yourself as something more than the immediate role you're playing, as that eternal, pure self.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with, building on that idea of remembrance. Just consider, how might holding that awareness, the awareness of your eternal pure self, a soul, on this vast cyclical journey, how might that actually shift your perspective on your day-to-day stuff, your activities, your interactions?
Yeah, how might seeing yourself that way change your priorities, perhaps? Or your deeper sense of purpose in it all?
Something to mull over. Thank you so much for sharing these sources with us and for, well, taking this deep dive.
Always a pleasure. Looking forward to the next one.